You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Yeah! Alabama syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studio. Local, state, national, covering all of it, man. And solid, conservative, and like the dude just said, we are just plain right. Welcome to Monday. It's Monday all day long. You know what? You got to have a Monday. You might as well just go ahead and embrace it. But it's Monday all day long. Today is August the 22nd, and Boomer is running the board. What's up, brother?
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday. The technician forgot to turn his mic on.
It's a Monday.
We're still glad you're here. All right. Listen, we got a great show. We got some cool stuff lined up for today. So, Boomer, you get that sound effect ready for the Triple Dipper. But first, let me tell you this: longtime friend John Rogers has been in working in politics. I mean, we first started with him actually working in my campaign back in 2010. Did an amazing job. It quickly got the attention of a number of people, and as a result, he wound up with a job in Montgomery, helping run the Senate Pro Tem, or Senate Majority Leader's office. And now he is with a national polling organization called Signal. And Signal started here in Alabama. They are now nationally renowned as one of the most accurate polling companies. We're going to have him on. So all that to say, my buddy John Rogers is going to be on at 3 to talk about the latest concerns about whether or not Republicans are going to take back the U.S. Senate. I'm curious his thoughts on it. Give us a pollster's perspective. So, 3 o'clock, John Rogers talking about will we take back the Senate. All right, here's the next one, though. 3:30, one of my favorite times every single week, Boomer and the Birdman. So that's when Boomer and Birdman, we ping them with questions. Sometimes they ping me with questions, and we just go back and forth and see what's what. I love getting their perspective. They do great work in the background that makes this show actually happen. But they got opinions, and they're good at sharing them. So anyway, we'll talk about that. Boomer and the Birdman, 3:30, and then I got a Triple Dipper. So, Boomer, hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you have got to know that we're going to cover down on today. Number 1, I said it briefly a minute ago, will the GOP take back the Senate? That's the actual name of this whole section of the Dipper. Will the GOP take the Senate? And I'm looking at some tone-deaf politics in there that I'll talk about in a minute, too. Will the GOP take the Senate? That's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I'm getting back. I swear I'm going to try and get it done today. Those of y'all who call in and say, Phil, why do you have a Triple Dipper when you only get 2 of them done? Sometimes I get 3. Anyway, I carry over from Friday. Education is a choice. And there's some new stuff that I added to the stack on that. So, number 2 on the Triple Dipper, education is a choice. And then number 3 is to hold the 2 fingers up in the camera. 3, they just can't read the room. It's amazing to me. I'm watching things like things being said by the Energy Secretary, can't read the room. Things being said by Liz Cheney, she just can't read the room. It's like, what? Do you hear yourself right now? Because we hear you, and we're not enjoying it. Because you're not listening. Let them eat cake. That's where it feels like they're coming from. Yeah, so number 3 on the Triple Dipper, they just can't read the room. Speaking of which, that kind of leads me to my comments for the day, my opening monologue. Tone-deaf politics. You ever wondered or ever been there when it was obvious that the person speaking to a room of folks was just not reading the room? I mean, like they just totally missed the whole rising sentiment. You could feel it in the room. The tension rises, and they could care less. They don't know what's going on. They're just saying what they think everybody needs to hear, even though nobody wants to hear it. It's not a pretty thing. I mean, it's one thing to, purposely stand your ground on an issue in front of a group of naysayers. That's fine. In fact, that's also leadership. One of my favorite quotes, which I've said on here several times in the past, it came from Margaret Thatcher, who said this. She said, "True consensus is the absence of leadership." That's a statement that infers that if everyone always agrees, it means that no one's out front saying, here's a better way. And I've been in those spots before. As a state senator, here's one example. I was informed once that the local chapter of the teachers union wanted me to come at a certain time to speak to their members. Now, keep in mind, The teachers union hated me with a passion. I mean, their invitation, it was really more of a summons than it was an invitation. But I went, and I went prepared, and I took a witness. And I spoke a bit, and then I agreed to take questions. It was not for the faint of heart, I assure you. One fellow in the back of the room with a crowd of like 75 or so hollered out, "You going to give us back the extra you took out of our paychecks for our retirement plan?" To which I simply said, "No." And you could have heard a pin drop. And then I added, "But I'm willing to tell you why if you'll hear me out." So I pulled out the actual presentations that their own leadership and the retirement systems of Alabama had given to us in the legislature. I showed them where it was their idea to increase their contributions, not the legislature's, that if we had not done so, the retirement system faced insolvency. Well, it was quiet when I finished. And the same guy said out loud, "No one's ever told us that before." And I said, "I know, and I'll leave these slides here for you to see later." So yes, it is certainly reasonable to stand on a position in front of a group that might be opposed to it. That's a must, in fact. But it's a different animal than the oblivious inability of some people to recognize that they are espousing something that the crowd is not in favor of. They just keep on going, keep on digging their hole even deeper, never realizing for a second that the path they're on is a dead-end street and the crowd before them is getting moodier and moodier because they know they're not being listened to. Now, I've told this story before. Please forgive me if you've heard it. But there was this colonel in my unit during my time in Afghanistan. He deployed later than the rest of us. We were downrange already doing our thing, but I'm told by a guy that was in the meeting that as this colonel came to headquarters, he met for the first time with the commanding general, that it was a classic case of not reading the room. My friend told me this colonel, who I actually know and like, began to inform the general of his concerns regarding security. But he was kind of doing it in a way that seemed to indicate that he was not approving of the current efforts over which, by the way, the general was the commander. The general, I'm told, became noticeably irritated at the quasi-lecture he was receiving from the subordinate, but the colonel was oblivious. And the colonel had some points, but he was losing his audience because he was not, literally not, reading the room. It finally got to the point that the general apparently had enough, and I'm told that he leaned across his table and he said, "Colonel, this is a war. If you're scared, I'll send you home." Well, that conversation was over, as you can well imagine. But see, that level of being tone deaf, that's bad juju anywhere, but that's also really bad juju in politics. It's important that folks know that their elected officials hear them and actually care. It does not mean the elected official has to cave to every whim. An elected official can't stick his or her finger in the air and just move with the winds of popular sentiment all the time. The old adage would be true that if you stand for everything, then you stand for nothing. I get that. But at the very least, if that official does not agree with a large section of their constituency, then just acknowledge it. Tell them you hear it, ask for input, but let folks know where you stand. Because, see, the real problems arise when folks don't believe that you're even willing to acknowledge their concerns. Case in point that I'll be delving into more during today's show is Senator Mitch McConnell. The leader of the Senate Republicans is now downplaying expectations for the midterm elections. But not because candidates aren't out there in the field campaigning their brains out. No, Senator McConnell is apparently concerned about the quote-unquote quality of the candidates. The quality? Oh, wait. He's concerned because so many of them are winning their primaries are endorsed by President Trump. His concerns are apparently that, quote, those kind of Republicans, end quote, are winning. Does he not realize that those kind of Republicans are exactly who the people of their states chose to vote for? So to denigrate the quality of the candidates in a race while holding a position of authority like that clearly indicates an unequivocal tone deafness in his politics. He wants the kind of people he wants, not the kind of people the people want. He's not reading the room. Well, this is nothing new with Senator McConnell. Sure, he's done some of the good things here and there. Keep in mind, Merrick Garland would be on the Supreme Court right now if McConnell hadn't stood his ground then. But I also distinctly remember sitting with Governor Bentley when he interviewed me as a possible replacement for Jeff Sessions in the U.S. Senate. As we sat down in the governor's office to talk, he picked up a sticky note and he said to me, "Look at that. I got a request for another call from McConnell again. He keeps calling me and saying, 'Whatever you do, don't send me one of those Freedom Caucus types.'" It was a clear indication that Leader McConnell did not want free-thinking, conservative-minded members added to his caucus. And obviously, I didn't get that job. But what I believe is happening right now is that a populist movement is afoot. Now, there will always be moderates. The Murkowskis and the Romneys will always be among us. But by and large, the same sense of mission that we saw in the Tea Party movement back in 2010 seems to be arising. People want elected officials who will preserve our nation, not just preserve the political status quo. Well, Mitch McConnell appears to be tone deaf to that fact. He is no longer reading the room. And if he's not careful, he's going to find the wind sucked out of his sails when the people tell him, "This is a war, Senator, and if you're scared, we'll send you home." And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll dig into it in a minute with you. But I look at this and I think, you're the leader. Don't get out in front of the people you're supposed to be in charge of and say, "Oh, expectations are lower because of the quality of the candidates." What you're basically saying is you didn't like them, but the people liked them. So get behind them and make it happen. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We got a whole lot more.
Let's face it, 1819 News.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, by the way, I think I can go ahead and safely announce now good news for all of you folks in Birmingham. Our Birmingham audience has been wonderful to embrace the show. But, you know, it's a 3-hour show, and we have only been on in the Birmingham market for the first 2 hours. But we are just very pleased to note that Crawford Media Group reached out to the show within a week or two of going on air and said, yeah, we think we're going to go ahead and get that third hour with you now, please. And so we just redid that contract last week, and I am proud to announce that as of September 1st, Boomer and I will be with you for the whole 3 hours all over the northern half of the state. So it doesn't matter where you is, it's the whole 3 hours, the whole schmeal, the whole kit and caboodle. So, yeah, Boomer, 3 hours coming, bro.
It's going to be great.
I mean, we're doing 3 hours anyway.
I know. I mean, come on. That's why Birmingham's just catching up. They're going to really enjoy us now.
I also think, too, that third hour sometimes winds up being one of our best hours. Folks are in the car going home. They call in a lot. We get a lot of interactivity.
Oh, yeah. It's going to – everyone in Birmingham's going to start calling, too, and try to beat out all those Huntsvillians.
Well, ain't no competition. They're all right-side ruffians.
That's right.
Every one of them's a right-side ruffian. That's what I say. Well, listen, we're stoked about it, and I got to tell you too. I'm also where are we, Boomer? Where are we on the podcast? Because it had to climb some during the weekend. We just had an exponential increase in the podcast. What we have, bud?
We have 72,300.
No kidding. I mean, that's like 500 or 600 more than Friday, wasn't it?
Yep, that's about right.
Oh my gosh! Wait, 72 what? 72.
72,300.
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, you know. Praise God. But here's the deal, folks. Rightsideradio.org is the website, which, by the way, is being tweaked right now as we speak. A couple things are down on the website just to, just as we get it ready to shift to its revised platform. But nonetheless, most of it's still there right now for you to peruse, one of which is our podcasting. So there's a section on the website, rightsideradio.org. And I always tell folks, you know, no matter where you are in the big wide world, go to the World Wide Web, go to rightsideradio.org. You can go to the Listen Live and Podcasting tab. And no matter where you is, there we is, because we can be with you anywhere in the world. We got folks that are watching live stream video, which still trips me out that, you know, I've got, and it's kind of weird because in studio, it's on delay, just in case I said a bad word, which I'm not going to do. But if I said a bad word, we could delete it. But nonetheless, so I look over and I see myself on the screen doing something I did 8 seconds ago, which is kind of weird. But yeah, the live streaming's on there. The live streaming audio is on there. The podcasting is on there. All kinds of stuff. Anyway, we love it, and we thank you for helping us make this show successful. And we look forward to, in a couple weeks, being on with all 3 hours, all y'all, right side ruffians. All right, the topics for today. Two of them kind of go hand in hand. So the first topic is, will the Senate take back, will the GOP take back the Senate? And, you know, in order to get effective policy done, you're going to have both the House and the Senate with a executive branch that they can work with. And granted, there's also the only thing that's going to slow the roll of the Biden administration's liberal policies right now is if we can take at least one of those, houses in D.C. We got to have either the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate. We got to get control of one of them to stem the tide of some of the madness we're seeing right now. All right, that being said, what we really like to do is take both. And so as conservatives, I know that not every Republican is a conservative. But I would say that the majority of Republicans are better than all the Democrats. And I'm fine with saying that. I don't see the Democrat Party platform espousing the things that I believe in. And I said it on the show before, I'll say it again. If, in fact, the Democrat Party was the one that stood for pro-life as a part of its platform, lower taxation, smaller government, fiscal accountability, school choice, if those things were hard and fast parts of the Democrat Party platform, but were not in the Republicans, then I'd probably be a Democrat, because those are principles. There's the things that I believe in as a conservative: strict construction of the Constitution, the right to life. Okay, so all that to say, I lean towards the Republican Party, obviously, and I'm fine with saying it. Here's the thing: we need some Republicans in there, though, who are willing to take the fight to the other side. And I don't mean like just go, well, we're going to block your bad policies. No, I mean go fix it. Go and fix it. Go do something. It's like looking back on the Cold War. The policies of containment, what did they really do? It was détente. It was like two sides staring at each other across a fence. Well, how about we actually do something? How about we go and take back lost ground? How about we fix some of these bad policies? How about we defund this Build Back Broke they just passed the other day? Well, it's not going to happen unless you put the kind of people in there who are willing to fight. I've got a new piece that came out today on 1819 News and was published in a couple other spots. And by the way, my op-ed is being picked up by others around the state. We'll keep you posted on that as it goes. But just so you know, the new one today is called Plan the Fight and Then Fight the Plan. Is there a plan? Are they going to put something in place that says, here's who we are and here's what we're going to do? My hope is the answer to that is yes. But here's the deal. Not without the right people. And the very idea that right now Senator McConnell is beginning to sort of backtrack, well, we're tempering expectations slightly. It appears to be the quality of the candidates. So, yeah. Well, we're going to talk about this, and I got a stack of stuff here. I mean, literally, there's races all over the nation right now, some of which are being polled. And by the way, I know polls are not always to be believed because remember, Hillary Clinton was going to be our president. I told somebody once, I said, if polling was always to be believed, I would have never gotten elected. But that being said, it's interesting to hear the analytics. And one of the best ones in the entire industry right now is a group called Signal. They were actually founded here by friends, people that I know personally in Alabama. They've gone national, and they're doing amazing things right now. So John Rogers from Signal here at the top of the hour. In the meantime, we get right back. I'm going to start unpacking for you some of what's being said about will the GOP take the Senate? Oh, man, we need it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We got a whole lot more. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right, man. We are south of Birmingham, north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, over to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi thrown in for good measure, making it cool to be a conservative. All right, listen. So number one on the triple dipper is, will the GOP take the Senate? Will they? Well, great question. And if you had asked, anybody in the media a month and a half, 2 months ago, the answer was yes, it does appear like, I guess. Now, all of a sudden, the messaging is coming out. Well, we don't know. Could be a toss-up. One story I've got, by the way, it comes from NPR, but this one particular story I've got here literally has the headline, "The Senate looks like a jump ball. 10 seats that will decide the majority." Well, okay. What the heck? I mean, how in the world can we be in a position with policies like we're seeing right now coming out of D.C., with the unpopularity of the sitting administration, the Biden administration, with everything going like it is, with the recession, with the constant spending, with the vaccine mandates still in everybody's mind? Well, depends on who you talk to. Like, for instance, I'm looking at a series of polls here. I've got a breakdown of polls from around the nation that were released as recently as the last 3 or 4 days, and they are showing, these polls, things like here's one. My friends at Signal, John Rogers is going to be on at the top of the hour. Signal had a closer version of this same poll in the Pennsylvania race between that guy Fetterman and Dr. Oz. And they had it then about a 4-point spread. Now another group called Public Opinion Strategies has the same one. It went from polling by Signal at 48 to 44 just in June to now here we are less than 2 months later. Public Opinion Strategies has it 51-33 in favor of the Democrat Fetterman, which I find a little hard to believe. You look at it and go, come on. But then again, I also said that about Biden. Come on. I mean, the guy campaigned from his basement. He was a gaffe after a gaffe after a gaffe. He was just like anemic. He was like, there was no inspiration. Well, do I believe that election was filled with hanky-panky? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also know, though, that a whole lot of people voted for him. So, wow. How do you look at something like that and go, I just want to vote for that? Well, I don't know, but a lot of people did. But here's the other thing. I look at it now with everything going on, and I think, with everything happening like it is, how can you want to vote for Raphael Warnock in Georgia? How can you want to vote for this guy Fetterman, who had a stroke, by the way, not long ago, and is obviously impaired? When he tries to speak on the stage, he can't find his words sometimes. And they're going to vote for him anyway? Well, anyway, here's the deal. Polls, they don't always give you the true accurate reflection. Some people don't like to answer the polls. They haven't truly gone into some other aspects of polling, like, just dealing with true actual expected voters. A lot to question. But nonetheless, the messaging in the last few days has shifted depending upon who you read. Now, here's one, though, like Red State, which it's Red State. Red State's a conservative publication. But Red State, in a piece that was published yesterday, has a title that says, "The Democrat Comeback is Crashing and Burning." Okay. It says, if you've been following the political chatter for the last month or so, one common thing being pushed by the press and the data nerds over at Twitter is the idea of a Democrat comeback before the midterms. It says, historically, every headwind is against Joe Biden and his party, but as the story goes, things will be different this time. After all, Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, he goes on to talk about a few things, but then he makes a point. Says the generic ballot, and the generic ballot is just a pure would you vote Republican, Democrat. It's just a basic generic. It's not trying to break it down truly into candidates and issues. All right. The generic ballot has often, it says, understated Republican support in environments that don't favor Democrats. Don't know why. It's just saying historically that's the way the trends go. On this day during the 2014 cycle, it says Democrats led by 1.4%, but the final result was Republicans by 5.7. Interesting. That was 2014. On this day in 2016, Democrats led by 5 points on the generic ballot. But on election day, Republicans won by 1.1. That's a swing of 6.1%. And they kept control of Congress even in 2020. The generic ballot overstated Democrat support by 3.7%, which is why Republicans gained some ground in the House. It goes on to say there are things to, and I don't know why this is what it is. I think part of it is just the apathy. I mean, the change in environment, the things that happen around you. But seasons matter. Like you can look at church right now. For some reason, church attendance is always down in the summers. Well, people take vacations. Kids are out of school, whatever. They lose their rhythm. It's kind of like having a Saturday versus a weekday. You lose your rhythm, but then you get back on Monday and you get your rhythm back. Well, it says that summer polling is notoriously bad, and for some reason it typically favors Democrats since 2012, summer polling. It says the closer we get to September, the more you can expect the GOP to start gaining ground again. All right. Well, we'll see. It also talks about the fact, though, that there's some polls out there that show Republican Senate candidates in certain areas are polling down, are trending up now. Okay, all that to say, Daily Caller, which is also a conservative publication. But the Daily Caller, in a story dated yesterday, said there's a giant red flag hanging over the GOP's 2022 Senate hopes. So I got red states saying, hey, don't worry, we're in a downtrend right now. This is the season when things don't typically go in Republicans' way for whatever reason. We haven't even truly gotten off the generic ballot to get into specifics yet. Okay. But now the Daily Caller on the same day published a story that says Republican candidates in 5 of the most competitive Senate races are struggling to outraise their Democrat opponents, suggesting the GOP could squander an otherwise favorable midterm environment. Interesting. They did a study of in-state donations to the campaigns. To be in-state donations mean the people who are going to vote are the ones who are actually providing support. It says election analysts often use in-state donations as a proxy for grassroots support and voter enthusiasm. Interesting. It says Democrats are simply out fundraising Republicans. The Democrats pioneered small dollar donations online, while Republicans have made efforts to catch up, but it's still not on par. Republican nominees in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina have all raised less money than the Democrats they will run against, both in and out of state. Interesting. And it goes on to talk about some of those. I look at it and go, wow, that does mean something, but it also means that the Senate leadership PAC had better be doing its job because it's raised like $128 million. Well, the Senate Leadership Fund, which is a super PAC associated with McConnell, did announce it's going to spend $28 million on like J.D. Vance up in Ohio. Well, J.D. Vance is a Trump-endorsed guy. Okay. But then why did McConnell come back and say in the same breath, yeah, we're going to spend millions on Vance? But yet, if you look at August 18th story in thehill.com, McConnell says the House more likely to flip than the Senate, cites candidate quality. What does that mean? Well, here we get to that tone deafness thing. Tone deafness. You're not reading the room, sir. Remember I said in my monologue a moment ago, it's apparent that what McConnell wants is the kind of people McConnell wants. He doesn't want the ones that the people want. So he literally said that the leader, the guy who's in charge, who on the one hand is going to sign the checks to, send millions of dollars to like J.D. Vance's campaign, among others, is also saying that one of the problems they've got, where's the quote? There's a greater likelihood that the House flips in the Senate. Senate races are just different. They're statewide. Candidate quality has a lot to do with the outcome. In other words, what he's saying is, yeah, we may not have the best people. Hint, hint, wink, wink. What he just said there was basically, if these Trump people keep winning, if these Trump people keep winning, well, it's going to be hard to win because you got to have moderates to win. Well, folks, we've got to get past that. We got to get past this notion that the only way to prevail is to be somewhere in the middle where you don't actually take stands on hard issues or you don't go for conservative red meat. The people of this nation right now are starving for someone to provide leadership that says, we can beat this stuff, and here's how. That's why DeSantis is so popular right now. That's why he is literally burning it up. That's why people want to see the DeSantis freedom agenda and the DeSantis playbook that he just published. They want to see it because they want to say, see what he did? And it worked. I got news. All of the conservative media out there, including this one, will give you all the air cover in the world if you'll just go be the conservatives you say you are when you run, including you, Mitch McConnell. I got a caller on the line, Boomer. I just realized I'm sitting here I'm on like monologue number 3. Is that Jeff? Jeff from Indiana. Jeff, how you doing today, bud?
You quit talking poorly about my next door neighbor, Mitch.
Sorry, man. I know y'all are buddies.
I can throw a rock and hit Kentucky, so yeah.
Sure enough.
So, now on this subject, don't underestimate the uninformed voter, the ignorant people out there in the world. That's how Joe Biden got elected. Because people didn't like Trump, but they didn't know anything about Joe. But hey, he's not Trump, and we did a poor job of telling people who Joe Biden was. The same thing goes for these. My mom, she only gets the over-the-air broadcast, which is ABC, NBC, CBS. She sits there, and I was talking about the border the other day. I was up at the house, and she don't have any idea that what's coming across the border.
Wow.
Because they don't tell her. That they don't report that stuff.
Yeah.
And she was getting almost hot on the collar because they was busing people to New York and D.C. It's like, well, why are they doing that? I said, because they're flooding in. They're coming across the border. But she didn't have a clue.
Wow. Well, then you as her son need to do a better job of telling her, Jeff.
Well, I do, but they've been Democrat. They used to put Obama. They had an Obama picture in the kitchen.
Did they really?
they sent him a card and everything. I'm looking at that and saying, "Are you kidding me?" Oh, he's just wonderful, and everything. I'm thinking, "Oh no."
This is where you have to dig into Scripture and realize you have to honor your mother and father. You just have to.
Oh yeah, I guess so. 'Cause that's the only thing you can put it up to, Phil.
Well,
and the thing about it is that they're well off. I mean, they was paying taxes, and the government give them a little bit of money back. Well, they thought that was just wonderful. But the thing about it is, they grew up in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And the Republican Hoover, I guess, and everything, that put a sour taste in their mouth, and they've had it ever since.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're right, bro. I mean, I think that Joe Biden got elected because no one was allowed to say a bad word about him. The Hunter Biden laptop was masked, and no one could get that message out. But it was also apparent that there was a whole lot of anti-Trump, and then the election was jacked up too, just to be honest. But
yeah.
But yeah, I am hoping that what we're going to wind up seeing, because the right now the polling is apparently tepid for Republicans for the Senate, but yet we also know it's too soon to really make that kind of prediction because we're still 45, 60 days out.
Yeah.
Well,
but we're running on. We're not Democrats. I don't hear anything. Republicans are saying much anything about what are they going to do when they get in, as far as other than just being against Democrat policies.
Yeah, that was actually one of my monologues last week that I turned into an op-ed that came out today. Was we have got to put together a comprehensive plan, kind of like the contract with America. There's nothing wrong with it, and then plan the fight and go fight the plan. But you're right. Leadership doesn't want to do that right now. They don't want to rock any boats, it appears.
And I'm questioning the kind of leadership we've got anyway. I mean,
oh yeah.
How do they get into leadership, and how these people keep getting voted into leadership? Aren't there some good enough good Republicans out there to put somebody good in?
You would like to believe so. Hey, Jeff, listen, man, I ran long. I got to go to a break, but appreciate you. As always, you have a great day, brother.
You too, Phil. Have a
All
great
right,
week.
take care. All right, Boomer, take us to the break, man. Yeah, I got more on this. I'm not sure. I got plenty on this. I got more than I can probably get to on this. But here we are. Leader McConnell, basically saying, yeah, the quality of the candidates. Well, the candidates won back home, Leader McConnell. Go be a leader. Tell the world they're the best things since sliced bread. Get her done. Don't just go after the ones you like. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We got plenty more.
ZLA Solutions is Alabama's premier
And we're back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Covering all of North Alabama. That's right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time, I like to say. So here's the thing. There is a story up on Fox right now. Let me look over at the screen. I just saw it a moment ago. So Fox News power rankings. In other words, what they're doing is they're ranking the races. And they're giving you indications of where they think things are going to be 11 weeks from now. So that's where we are. 11 weeks from tonight is election night. So Fox News power rankings headline: GOP House majority shrinks as Democrats score key victories. Now, let me underscore that by saying they also point out Republicans are definitely expected to take the House back. They're not saying that at all. They're not saying they're not. What they're saying here is that while Republicans are expected to win the House this November, they'll be winning it on a slimmer margin if things hold the way their current power ranking polling indicates. They show 28 seats as toss-ups, meaning you can't tell which way it's going to go right now. They do say that the Republicans are going to gain a net positive, but that right now, whereas they expected it to be a much broader range, Fox is saying polling indicates it's a narrower range. Okay, we'll see. They do also say, too, the Senate, which is the topic of my, triple dipper number one here, the Senate is literally too close to call. They don't know. Well, all right, there's that. Now, I'll be honest with you. Trump takes immediate issue with the fact that McConnell would go out there and say, it's the quality of the candidates. Well, okay. Let me tell you first about a story in L.A. Times. Story in the L.A. Times, it literally tells you exactly what they're thinking right now. It says in the L.A. Times dated yesterday, headline, pro-Trump wins in blue states threaten GOP hopes in November. What are they saying? They're saying because they're MAGA candidates, because they're Trump endorsed, well, it's less likely to win in the general election. Because in their words, here it is, Republicans have found success in Democrat strongholds like Maryland and Massachusetts when they have fielded moderate candidates who could appeal to voters in both parties. Republicans need to stop electing people who appeal to the other party. How about that for an idea? It says, with Democrats facing headwinds this year, Republicans had hoped the strategy would pay off yet again. But Republican voters have nominated loyalists of President Trump in several Democrat states, including Maryland and Connecticut, making the GOP's odds of winning those general election races even longer. Okay, do I understand that where you have purple politics, people in the center seem to be, in charge, independent voters? Yes, I get that. What I do not see, though, is why it should ever be considered a strategy for Republicans to try and be more like Democrats so they can win more races. If you're a conservative, go be a conservative. And again, I remind you, being a conservative and being a Republican are not always the same thing, a.k.a. Murkowski and Romney. We could name them right down the line. But all of the above strategies towards conservatism need to be in play. Because what we're looking at right now is a culture war that we are in. We're in a fiscal policy war. We're in an immigration war. And if we elect those who are squishy and go, well, I'll stand in the middle so that Democrats will like us too, we will never see a change. Are we going to take back the Senate? We'll talk to my friend John Rogers. He's a pollster and strategist with Signal Polling and Analytics coming up in just a minute, and see what his thoughts are on it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Lots more where that came from. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Right Side Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Right Side studios. Local, state, national, man, we cover down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, yes, we are solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, I'm pleased to go to the phones right now and bring on somebody that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years. We've worked together in politics. He has done an amazing job, not just working with me in my own campaigns and things, but with others as well. And then also went to work in Montgomery, sort of herding the cats for the Senate Majority Leader in the state Senate. And now works with Signal Polling and Analytics. That's my friend John Rogers. He's a pollster and strategist, now taking the national view of politics with polling. I need his perspective. So, hey, John Rogers, how you doing today, man?
Phil, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show again. Great to be with you.
Thank you, man. Well, listen, the focus of my time today is, will the GOP take the Senate? And I know that, like when I reviewed, I've got a piece here that I pulled off of 270 to win. And what's really neat, though, is when I see a number of these polls they cite are y'all's. Signal, C-Y-G-N-A-L, by the way, folks. Signal polling is now nationally renowned, started right here in Alabama. But tell me, John, give me the one over the world. Are we going to take the Senate back or not?
I think that we're in a good position to be very competitive and have a chance of taking the Senate back. I do think that the environment has improved a little bit for Democrats and President Biden. It's gone from catastrophic to bad, but the Senate it's on a knife's edge, right? And so it's 50-50 right now. And generally, when you look at a lot of the polling that's out there, it seems like there's 4 to 5 Senate seats that are really going to determine who has the majority. I think that we will retake the House of Representatives. I feel pretty confident in that. And then the Senate's really going to come down to a handful of seats in states like Georgia and Arizona. But a lot of that is because, part of it is inflation is still really bad, but gas prices have come down a little bit. I was looking at earlier, the average price for gasoline was $5 a gallon in June, and now it's at $3.90. And if you drive an F-150 like me, that's still pretty cold comfort, but it is improving a little bit, and so that helps Biden at the margin.
All right. Well, so it's been quite a shift in a few races. Like, for instance, I noticed that you guys were one of the ones that polled the Pennsylvania race between Democrat Fetterman and Republican Dr. Oz. Back in June, you guys apparently had it at 48-44 Fetterman's way. Public Opinion Strategies just came out like 3 days ago, and they've got it 51-33. That's a pretty significant change.
Yeah, I think that race in Pennsylvania. So part of what's going on in a couple of states is that, it's still true, even in a national political environment that's very polarized, that the quality of the candidate and the quality of the campaign still matter to voters, right? And so right after he won the nomination, Dr. Oz, it didn't seem like he hit the campaign trail really hard necessarily. And Fetterman was pounding the pavement pretty hard. And of course, you also have Oz has spent a lot of his life outside of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, that kind of thing. So that's a seat that maybe I think has shifted from being something that should be very winnable for Republicans to being now I think Fetterman definitely has an edge. There's also the kind of complicating factor in Pennsylvania that the Republican nominee for governor is somebody who's he's somebody that has a lot of baggage, I think, associated with him, and he's having his own challenges in the governor's race. And so Pennsylvania is sort of a unique case in a lot of ways.
Well, all right, then talk to me about closer to home here, Georgia. I mean, one of the races that's got a lot of attention is Herschel Walker. Raphael Warnock, to me, is like a cartoon when you look at him. But he resonates with Democrats. He's raised a ton of money, something like $15 million. Raphael Warnock has raised. Herschel Walker, though, has all of the positive name ID that you could possibly want in a state like Georgia, and he's also got Trump's endorsement. And yet, polling indicates that that's a close race. What are your thoughts?
But Georgia's very interesting to look at. So the first thing to note is that Brian Kemp is very popular in Georgia, and Brian Kemp will be reelected as governor of the state of Georgia. And a lot of, Stacey Abrams, I think she still hasn't conceded her 2018 loss to Brian Kemp.
No.
And she's raised a lot of money. Warnock has raised a lot of money, but Kemp is going to get reelected, and he's going to win by, probably over 3 points, somewhere in the 4 to 7 point range, if I had to guess. So Kemp has got Republicans very energized, and that's very helpful to Herschel Walker. And I think what a lot of independent voters in Georgia are looking for, especially in the suburbs of Atlanta, is they're not in love with Raphael Warnock. They know he's a very hard left liberal, and they want to see that Walker just kind of has some basic competency around some of the questions of the campaign, right? And I think that Walker's a first-time candidate, right? And so I think that he's starting to exhibit more and more of that. His campaign has gotten more and more disciplined as we've headed into the fall. And so Warnock is going to have a tough time holding onto that seat. I think that that's going to be I think that seat will probably determine who has the majority as we go into 2023. Of course, remember, we also might be headed to a scenario where you have a runoff again. And so this is what happened at the end of 2020. And so if neither Warnock nor Herschel Walker gets 50%, we're going to have a runoff.
Wow. So do we have any independents running in that race? Are there vote stealers on the ballot that could I say vote stealers, are the kind that like sapsuckers that take the vote away?
Yeah, there's a third party candidate, a libertarian candidate, and so that will be something that could create a little bit of there could be some votes that go to that candidate that would normally have gone to Walker. So it will have an effect, and but the basic fact still though is that the leader of the party in Joe Biden is still very unpopular. We just concluded a national poll that will be coming out tomorrow of around 6,000 voters from all across the country, and President Biden has a negative net image of -8. Right.
Wow.
So 53% of the country hold an unfavorable view of him, and only 45% hold a favorable view of him. So that's going to have a lot of effect. The media likes to talk about former President Trump quite a bit, but Biden is unpopular, and his numbers are not going to be rising anytime soon.
Well, and that top of the ticket does mean something. But speaking of top of the ticket, in your opinion, how much does a Trump endorsement still mean right now?
It meant a lot in the primary, especially it meant a lot in the primary in races where it was an open seat, right? And so in places like Ohio, where Rob Portman was the incumbent Republican senator, he was retiring, and J.D. Vance was able to nab the Trump endorsement right at the end, and that vaulted Vance from, being behind a little bit in the pack to finishing first. And so it definitely mattered a lot in the primary. In the general election, what matters most from that perspective is whether or not the Trump camp will really spend a lot of money through some of its affiliated groups on some of these candidates. So far, they really haven't shown a lot of interest in doing that. And so it was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal today talking about that some of the Republican nominees who have been critical of Mitch McConnell, of Leader McConnell, like Blake Masters in Arizona, they've had to kind of go hat in hand to McConnell in order to get the backing of the leader's camp and try to get some additional resources on the independent expenditure side.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that, so I was focusing some of my angst a little while ago before you came on the air with McConnell being very tepid here of late. I mean, you look at the guy he's the head of the caucus. He's a minority leader right now in the U.S. Senate, and basically the Senate leadership caucus PAC is one of the major sources of external revenue for campaigns, and yet he himself came out and said sort of tempered expectations. So, we have to wait and see, and, quality of candidates, which many people take when he says quality of candidates to mean he doesn't like Trump's people winning because there's not the kind that he wanted to have come to D.C. So your thoughts on McConnell's backing? I mean, how important is that right now?
Mitch McConnell is interested in one thing, and that is a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate. And so even in Ohio, where J.D. Vance is the nominee, and Vance is definitely more on the populist side of the Republican camp, and Vance has said some things critical of McConnell. The Senate Leadership Fund, which is the main PAC that works with McConnell, they've committed $28 million to Ohio, backing J.D. Vance. And so I think that McConnell is a historically impressive strategist, one of the most effective majority leaders that I think the U.S. Senate has ever seen. And, really, thanks to him holding off the nomination of Merrick Garland, we have got a really solid conservative majority in the Supreme Court. So I think McConnell is interested in getting everybody across the finish line that he can. And he'll spend whatever resources he has to do to make that happen.
Well, I hope that's true, and because being on the outside looking in, what I hear is someone who is looking for moderates and doesn't want conservatives. I mean, he is the appearance of and you don't have to comment if you don't feel comfortable with it, but the reality is, I feel like what we got right now is a Senate leader who just wants to make sure the status quo was maintained, but he would prefer that it would be a moderate status quo as opposed to conservatives who think for themselves. And by making those comments, what he basically did was dissed on the voters who put the conservative Trump-endorsed primary candidates across the finish line.
Yeah, I've got a little bit different take, I think, on that. In that McConnell he's pretty pragmatic, just in the sense that he looks at these polling numbers. He knows kind of that the environment has shifted a little bit. So I think another way of kind of looking at his comments may be to say, try to energize some of the business community and some of the people who donate money to Republican candidates to say, like, look, there was a lot of, and I remember in the spring, coming out of the 2021 elections, in the great results in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin winning, there were a lot of Republicans who were just almost sort of assuming that this was going to be a red wave election year. And so I think McConnell's comments, in a way, are kind of a splash of cold water to say, look, we've got some races where, like in Pennsylvania, where it's extremely competitive. And if Republicans don't rally around, and if Republicans don't really, raise money and really support these campaigns, we may not have a Senate majority when the dust is settled in November.
Well, pragmatic view, but that's what you're paid for, man. You being the pollster, you have to look at the numbers. So if you had to give it, I mean, here in the last second of this discussion, if you had to give it a up or down, what do you think? Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats come the end of the time at the vote count?
It's going to be really tight either way, Phil. I think it's going to come down to Georgia, and then I think also it'll come down to Arizona. Those would be the two states that I would look at. There's been a lot of discussion about Wisconsin. Ron Johnson is going to hold on in Wisconsin, and I think Republicans will win in Nevada. But it will come down to Arizona and Georgia.
Wow. All right. John Rogers, working with Signal as a pollster and strategist, Signal Polling and Analytics, a national firm with roots right here in Alabama. We appreciate your time today, bud.
Thank you, Phil. Great to be with you.
All right. Take care. All right, Boomer, I ran long because that was a good conversation. And it's interesting to hear. Go ahead and move us to a break, bud. But it's interesting to hear, somebody who I know and love and work with regularly has a slightly different view of McConnell and his comments. Like maybe it's designed to actually galvanize voters as opposed to diss on voters. I hope that's true. I do hope that's true. But I still think that a leader gets out there and rallies the troops and says he's rallying and not just throws some shade and hopes that encourages people to do something good. Wow. Okay, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More of that. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, 1819 News is
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right, making it look cool to be a conservative. So, listen, my friend John was on a moment ago. John Rogers from Signal Polling and Analytics, good at what he does, excellent. I mean, gosh, one of the best, most organized individuals I've ever worked with. The kind of guy that I said if I could ever hire him again, I would. I gotta. The more I think about the comments there about Mitch McConnell, so first of all, if that was his version of leadership, to go out there and say, well, we may have a problem with the quality of our candidates. Well, sir, that's not leadership. If he's saying that like reverse psychology, real leaders don't use reverse psychology to rally the troops. All right, you don't go stand in front. I mean, what if the Braveheart speech had been, y'all better buck up or we're going to lose this fight to the British? I mean, no. Right? No. What if General Patton, instead of saying, what was it General Patton's great, I mean, he had made some great speeches, but one of his speech was, your job is not to give your life for his country. Your job is to make the other poor SOB give his life for his country. What if he had said, we could all die out here unless you do your jobs? That's not leadership. So I got to go ahead and I got to go ahead and stick with my original opinion then. Mitch McConnell, if the idea was that he is merely employing the use of reverse psychology to help rally donors and the base by sort of casting some fear out there, not leadership. But what he needs to do is say, things are looking tough. I need people to really bow up. We're going to get out there. We're going to get this done. But we're going to take every one of you to get us across the finish line. It's going to take every dollar donation. It's going to take every local voter. It's going to take you taking your friends to the polls. It's going to take everything's got to go because we cannot let this continue. No, what he said? Well, it appears that what we have is a quality of the candidates issue, and we may not take back the Senate. That was a pretty good impression, by the way. Boomer's laughing. I think I gotta grab my goozler here and okay. Anyway, don't ever do that again, Phil. But I just watched myself make the face on the screen, and now I'm thinking, don't ever do that again. But yeah. So there's that story from the LA Times. Pro-Trump wins in blue states threaten GOP hopes in November. That's what they're thinking. That's the message. The fact that it was pro-Trump candidates winning their primaries, it might reduce the chances of, taking things back. And you know what? President Trump never won from mincing words. He came back in his response and story on National Review dated yesterday. Trump calls McConnell a broken-down hack over midterm predictions. Well, there you have it. And, classic case of President Trump saying whatever's on his mind when it's on his mind. But listen, we can't go down that road of just conceding ahead of time because, I don't know, maybe we don't have the right kind of people. That's not leadership, sir. Spend the money, but do the work. Call the troops to action. They'll respond. Stop mealy-mouthing. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Boomer and the Birdman coming up next. Y'all stay tuned. That's just good right there. Hey, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering all of North Alabama, going into one of my favorite segments here. So these guys, literally, the stuff that we do at Rightside is far more comprehensive than just me speaking into a microphone. I mean, I've got Boomer's not only running the board, but he's keeping the tech alive. I mean, there's times when he's rewiring things. More than once, he has jumped up, grabbed a wire, and replaced it in the middle of a segment while I'm on the air. And I love that. It does a lot to help me with the resourcing on the show daily. And then Birdman's in the background. You know, the website, the functionality, the ability to have the Rightside store and all the things that we do. And then, you know, podcasting gets put up where y'all can get to it, which is, you know, hitting epic levels. All that to say, these two guys do a great job, but they also have opinions. So once a week, we do this thing called Boomer and the Birdman and get their opinions on things. But let me check the roll. Of course, Boomer, you are here.
Check.
And your microphone's on this time.
I had it unmuted this time. I was ready.
All right. And do we have a Birdman? Are you with us, bud?
I am.
You are indeed. Nice, clear connection. All right. Yes. Good deal. Well, I pronounce a quorum for Boomer and the Birdman, so hit that sound. All right. All right, fellas, you know the deal. Sling a question or two at you. Sometimes you sling a question or two back at me, and we just see what your thoughts are. No wrong or right answer. Anyway, here's question number one. You ready? There's been a lot of talk about military recruiting being way down below the marker. I mean, like 40% right now below the reduced levels they were shooting for. So let me ask you, you guys, younger generation than me, does your generation still view military service as an honorable option? You included, but then just speak to that in general. Boomer, you first.
I believe absolutely yes for my generation. I mean, I have a lot of friends that were in the military and are in the military, and in our eyes, it's a prestigious prestigious thing, and you're fighting for your country. As one thing that I was never a part of and partly regret, but for my friends and fellow Americans that were in my generation and even that are not, I am very honored and respect for what you're doing for our country.
You know, well, thank you. And so, I mean, like literally, you could be, folks your age, I mean, folks you graduated high school with, could actually be nearing their 20-year retirement right now.
Correct.
I mean, that's an amazing thing to think about. But so, what do you think? Is the recruiting down because it's a generational thing, or is it down because of other reasons?
Well, in my head, it has to play with maybe both scenarios. In my head, is it may be a generational thing. I look at it as the new and upcoming generations are all tech savvy and into themselves and in those areas. But I also see it as some things that we've been talking about on the show is some of the things that they're asking the military now or of, like the vaccinations.
Yeah.
And areas of, I mean, specifically that. And now what I read about more so than anything is them spending a little bit more time talking about gender, and instead of actually what they're there to do is defend our country.
Being warfighters. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with it. All right, Birdman, you come from a few years younger in age now than the Boomer. So your thoughts, your generation, is it still honorable to serve in the military? Is it still a thing?
From a personal standpoint, of course, it's honorable. I've had nothing but, the utmost respect, and Boomer touched on this as well. I wanted to join for the majority of my life. As a matter of fact, you and I have had this conversation numerous times.
Yeah.
That said, from my generation, I'm actually going to have to disagree pretty heavily with what Boomer was saying. And I think the younger generation, whereas he's not wrong about that, I think from a military standpoint, a lot of my generation doesn't view it with the same amount of honor. And my friends, I have had this conversation before with them. Their position on it is not a problem with the military itself. It is the administration that is guiding the military currently.
Okay.
A lot of these people don't want to go in And, obviously you're serving your country, but you're being directed by the administration that you believe is so wholly corrupt. I don't want to swear allegiance to an administration that I vehemently disagree with, although I believe that you can serve your country outside of the military, and that is absolutely worth dying for, because at the end of the day, it's all about serving your country. It's not about the title that comes with.
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest. I mean, I served through the Obama era, and it was frustrating. There were things that the Obama era brought into the military lifestyle that were more difficult. I also didn't appreciate some of the ways they handled things when troops were downrange. But you just do. I mean, there's an old sort of train of thought in the U.S. military. Unlike any other army in the world, unlike most armies in the world, in the U.S. military, you can't just say go do and it gets done because you were told to go do. You have to also tell them why. And not that you're allowed to question orders. What I'm saying is, the U.S. society, the more free-thinking aspects of U.S. society, requires troops to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And you're right. I think when you begin to mislabel the reasons why the military is there at all, or when you give them misguided intent, it destroys some of the why. Well, anyway, there's that. All right, let me go to the next question. Now, I'm starting with you first there, Birdman. So, all right, we just talked about military service, but let me ask you this. For your generation, what do you think is the biggest challenge? I mean, it just in general. I mean, what are y'all looking at when you see the political environment, the social environment, the fiscal environment, whatever? What is the biggest challenge for your generation, you think?
Culture. It's culture.
Okay.
Going against the culture and being willing to take your licks, especially if you're a Christian. It's culture. That's the hardest thing on a day in and day out scale. You have to fight that every single day, on the public realm, social media, person to person. Yeah, this culture wants to lead us in almost in all ways opposite of what the Bible and God has called us to do and be. And you have to fight that on every single step.
Is there any particular aspect of culture in general?
I mean, I think it's culture as a whole. I think the way that we're viewing things top down, government down, I think it starts with education. And I think a lot of issues start with education. But, when I was probably in middle school, we stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance. We stopped doing, we stopped praying in schools, stuff like that. Yeah, it's a top down thing. And if you don't make that formation from the start, it will never build its way back up. And, that's where the nuclear family conversations around the dinner table, that's where that stuff has to be reinforced. And it feels like it isn't in our culture anymore.
All right, Boomer, your thoughts, your generation, you're a hair old, you're what, 10 years older, I guess.
About, yep.
So where are you at with it? What your generation's challenges?
My generation challenges, honestly, what I believe is, I think my generation has challenges with finances. I mean, in certain aspects. I know just doing, research in the past and stuff, I know that my generation has a lot in debt in certain areas. And then, with taking care of their parents coming up and then also new kids and stuff like that, it's been a situation where they're having to learn. And then also the inflation of schools going, when I went to school versus when, our parents went to school. And it's just a lot more expensive in a lot of different areas. And I know a lot of people are starting to experience that now, especially in the past few years, the inflation going up in certain areas. But I do know a lot of my peers have experienced a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, your age group is trying to grow a family, maybe getting out of their student debt finally, and then at the same time struggles with wanting to buy the house versus rent the house or whatever else.
And that's one thing that I did research a little while ago on housing, because I was just interested. And, because a lot of my generation has bought houses. Yeah. But how much debt has my generation been in buying houses? And that was a big thing.
Well, and I look at it too, and I wonder. So your generation, Boomer, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to you, Boomer.
Right.
But your generation, Are y'all less influenced by the craziness of culture that Birdman was talking about?
I would believe so. I mean, maybe a little shy of it.
I would have predicted so.
Right.
I would think that TikTok influencers have less influence over your generation.
I would say so. I mean, most of my generation, I would say, it has a lot less influence.
I mean, at your point, if people want to consider themselves furries, they're usually cast out.
Absolutely. If there was a furry in my generation or class, they wouldn't have been there.
All right. Listen, I tell you what, let's do this. That's a perfect time for us to go ahead and take the break. So there's the first couple of questions on Boomer and the Birdman. I love it. You guys, it brings a different perspective. It's not just me, the old guy with the microphone. But we'll come back. More of this. In fact, got it on the slate again. They get to ask me questions. I don't even know what they are yet. We'll find out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More with Boomer and the Birdman right after this.
ZLA Solutions is Alabama's premier provider of
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. We're in one of my favorite times of every single week. We got two guys who are helpful, and not more than helpful, who are responsible for making the show work. I mean, literally, I can't do what I do without them. And so, yeah, Boomer and the Birdman. And we do this segment now where they get some time to sort of share their opinions. So we just ran through the first segment of Boomer and the Birdman. And then last time we did this, on a whim, I flipped the tables and said, y'all ask me a question. And so I'm going to do that again today at great risk to my own reputation. I'm going to go ahead and say, you guys can ask me. So, Boomer, you're first, man. Question for me. What do you got? I don't even know what it is.
All right. Christian nationalism.
Oh, Lord.
So what my question is to you is, are they just going after the religion, and what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, we did a segment on that, about a week or so ago.
Yeah.
So Christian nationalism, if you go out there and Google it, Google Christian nationalism, first of all, it's going to be like prolific, the number of opinion writers and different, liberal rags that are out there publishing stories that are allegedly about Christian nationalism. And the thing is, you can look down the line. It's going to be like Axios, The Daily Beast, Politico, and it's like CNN. And they're just like, Christian, we got to watch out for Christian nationalism with ties to white extremism. What does that even mean? So first of all, I reject it. Do I believe that there are, I believe that there are people who carry Bibles who are nuts. I mean, if you look at Scripture, Satan knew the Bible as well as anybody. In fact, when Jesus was in the wilderness, Satan was quoting Scripture to him to try and tempt him. I mean, he knows how to say it. It doesn't mean he's going to abide by it. So do I believe there are people out there carrying around the flag of Christianity who really don't even know Jesus personally? Sure. But this whole thing that's being concocted right now, to me, is another red herring. They got to have something to attack. They got to have something to create fear. And so the idea of Christian nationalism, to me, is just a farcical opportunity by the liberal media to construct this narrative that we are a systemically racist nation and that there are problems with our people, and that their latest one is to say, white cisgender male Christian conservatives. We got to watch it. I mean, how many more labels can they put on, apparently me, for that matter?
And they're specifically going after white Christians. A lot of these crazy articles are labeling white Christians bad. I mean, yeah, like you said, there's some crazy people out there.
Yeah.
But it's just what it seems like to me is the fact of, okay, are they going right after our religion, and are they going to, not persecute us here in the United States, but I mean.
Well, so and part of that is the liberals tend to always view things through what is referred to as intersectionality. They define something, and like for instance, let's say you're a gay person, but then if you're a gay black person, you have two of the oppressed minorities, in their opinion, and that's now intersected. So you have intersectionality of your issues. You're both gay and you're black. In this case, then they also have to attack people, and you can label people, and they can have intersectionality of their narratives. So the narrative on the one hand is white supremacy, white privilege, and then if they go ahead and realize, wait a minute, one of our other intersectionalities that we support is the LGBTQ, and oh, by the way, the Bible does not support that. Now what are we going to do? Quick, what can we do? Oh, I know, white privilege intersects with Christian, nationalism. Anyway, that's crazy. So. I think it's hype. I think it's an attempt by them to label the new, Boogie Bear. Birdman, you got a question for me?
Yeah. So, it came out today. I think it was this morning, about how Fauci is confirmed that he's retiring and yada yada.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Our side of the aisle doesn't exactly think that highly of Fauci, I think is safe to say. So my question for you is, given this whole situation, when he's gone, What do you think is going to happen after that? Is there going to be somebody else that's going to rise to the top in this position and start leading the charge and send us back through the same amount of nonsense? Or do you think this is going to be a stepping off point where people are going to go, okay, let's start making decisions for ourselves instead of some whack job that's going to tell us everything that we need to know? What's your thoughts on this, how this is going to play out?
Well, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't quickly say, ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. But, all right. But, so yeah, first of all, you know what? I guess I got to go back and check. I'm not sure how a person in Fauci's position attains that position. I don't think it's confirmed by the Senate, is it? I'm not aware that it is.
I don't believe so.
But it's amazing how much is confirmed by the Senate. So it's going to depend on the pool from which they choose. Are they going to find somebody who's been a Fauciite and promote that person up? Are they going to go out and find somebody to try to reform the image? You know, the CDC just came out just the other day and basically announced, yeah, we've been getting a whole lot wrong. We got to do things better. Well, hello. Thank you. We've been telling you that now for the last year and a half. But so to answer your question, I think it depends on how they go about the hiring process, what they're looking for, and then do they find somebody with the intent of not being Fauci? You know what I'm saying? If they're gonna say, listen, I know Fauci, listen, we're jaded with you, the public doesn't like you, we need you out of the way. If they're gonna say, let's get him out of the way, but then they're gonna replace him with somebody like him, bad juju.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not sure I answered the question, but I think I did.
No, you did.
Okay, good enough. All right. Then the last part here. You guys always find the stories that I have not seen. And I like to think that I've seen a lot of them. But then we do this thing, stupidest story of the week, as you guys wrap up this segment. Stupidest story of the week. And you guys come up with some crazy, stupid stories. I'm going to Birdman first this time. Birdman, stupidest story of the week. What you got?
Well, it's California again. Yep. So Los Angeles Public Health has officially come out and said that taxpayer dollars are now being used to test animals, specifically house pets, for COVID-19. They have so far tested 177 animals. Shocker, 0 of them have been tested positive. But it's good to know where the Los Angeles County tax money's going to, because that's beautiful.
We ran out of time. Is the music playing already?
That's the music.
Good Lord. Well, tell me real quick, what is yours?
Nashville protesters cement their feet in front of Starbucks because of the vegan milk.
I've seen that one.
Nice.
I've seen that one. That's going to show them.
I had to show that because I'm, just came back
You're
from
not going to give me vegan milk. I'm going to bury my feet in concrete, throw myself off a bridge. We'll show you. All right, Boomer and the Birdman. Love you guys. You do amazing work. Thanks for what you do. And, folks, listen, we got a lot more of the show left. 4 o'clock right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Local, state, national, solid, conservative, and just plain right. By the way, we had another, and I won't say who because we had a great, prior to the show meeting, this person will be on the air with us sometime soon, but this particular statewide candidate was in the Rightside studio today. The second time we've heard somebody say, who's been in a bunch of radio studios, this is like one of the nicest studios I've ever seen.
Yes. I mean, sorry, I just chimed in, but absolutely they said that because it is.
Yeah. We're yes, it just is.
It just is.
Good enough said. All right. Hey, listen, I got a caller on line one. Is that Brian? Yeah, Brian from Huntsville. Brian, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, sir. And I appreciated that last segment immensely. And I gave the other guys the jokes in the back, and so I won't go on here with those.
Okay.
But Mitch McConnell is saying the quality of the candidates. Shouldn't he be referring to the quality of the candidates on the other side?
You would
Because
think.
I would remember, if I remember, Raphael Warnock, he pulled some hocus pocus, or they did, because he got in the runoff. He was behind in the points. And then it came back, and he's in there. And if he was not in there, all this other jazz going down in the background now, the alleged de-inflation act, would not have happened.
Yeah,
because that'd have been one seat one way, one the other, and the vice president would not have mattered.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, Raphael Warnock, if you look at him, too, he also had that domestic violence situation, and there was pretty much video of it with him arguing with the man's like a cartoon character, but yet here we go.
And if you've ever heard him preach, I can only stand so much and everything. I do not consider, myself personally, I do not consider himself a Christian.
Well, so I think we might be losing your signal there, Brian. But the reality is, what are your thoughts? Just as an outsider looking in, you're in Alabama. Obviously, it's a red state. Katie Britt's going to win the U.S. Senate race. That's pretty much a given and to be expected. But what do you think is going to happen overall?
I should be, and like anybody else paying attention to it, I should be sending some money over to
Yeah, you make a great point. There is no reason why we can't get out there and support candidates in other states. In fact, the Alabama Republican Party does that quite often. They call it the Mighty Task Force, and they go and they campaign in other states.
Well, I'm going to give Herschel Walker a few dollars and hopefully dispel away from them from my Rockville.
All right, man. Hey, listen, appreciate you as always. Great day, Brian. All right, bye-bye. All right, folks, you want to call in 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's our phone number right here. And we got plenty to talk about. You're welcome to call in about the U.S. Senate races. You're welcome to call in about the Boomer and the Birdman segment we just did. You're welcome to call in about what I'm about to go down to next, which is number 2 on the Triple Dipper. I made it to number 2 so far. Yeah. Who is that calls in and says, why does he even have a triple dipper if he doesn't even get to the triples? I don't know, because I got to prepare. But sometimes a show is just so good, we don't even make it all the way to it. But I'm in number 2 of the triple dipper. Education is a choice. Listen, here's the thing. If they can get to our kids, they know they got the next generation. And at the same time, even those who aren't trying to just become culture warriors with our kids, we still have an issue with the fact that the teachers union and bureaucrats have literally watered down the quality of education in the United States such that it is no longer a leader in the world at all. In fact, I'm going from memory here, but I seem to recall that we rank like 23rd in the world. 23rd. We're the leader of the free world, and yet our education. You looking it up, Boomer? Yeah, look it up for me. Tell me what you see. I thought I heard 23 most recently, but then here's the thing: of all the states in the nation, ranking last, that's where Alabama is. And folks, we can't continue down that trend. That is absolutely not acceptable. And to just say it's not acceptable but not do something about it is a dangerous place to be. We have a Republican supermajority. The Republican caucus in both the House and the Senate with a Republican governor who can pass anything they want to if they get their minds to it. Anything. But right now what we're facing is the fact that we have an education system in Alabama that is not doing a good service to its citizens who pay lots of tax dollars in. And when I say lots, I mean lots. We just passed the largest ever budget in the history of Alabama for education. And then on top of that, we had so much extra cash that we had over $1 billion in excess funds because of all the federal dollars flowing in. What do we do with it? We spend it on mostly government, but nonetheless, you have to look at it and go, okay, when I was in the Senate, a lot of times liberals would go to the microphone and their argument was, we don't fund education enough. Why? Because they were toting the teachers union water. We don't fund education enough. But if you asked them what enough was, they could never tell you. So okay, what does that mean? Well, we're last in the nation, but there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 states that spend less per child on education than we do, and they rank higher than us. What does that tell you? Well, it tells me that literally it's not how much we spend, it's what we spend it on. It's how we spend those dollars. If our education system is going to remain in the tank like this, my gosh, we've got to pull it up, and there's got to be something different done. One of the main sources conservatives believe for improving the education system is to allow choice to take place. Got an article here from the Daily Wire dated yesterday. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, you may recall her. She's the Republican lieutenant governor now of Virginia. And she's the one who, by the way, she broke all the stereotypes. You know, she's a strong black woman, former Marine, and she's also either a first-generation American or she's a naturalized citizen herself. I can't recall which. I believe her family immigrated from Jamaica, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she's just breaking all the Democrat molds. And, of course, they don't want to lift her up as a strong, black leader because she's also a Republican. Anyway, she appeared on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, and the story written on Daily Wire says that in the discussion about declining education standards and critical race theory being involved in our education system, that it's caused the U.S. to lag behind all of our global adversaries. In her words, she says, public education in America has now risen to the level of a national security crisis. She said, we're losing to the Chinas of the world, to the Russias. Even Estonia is beating us in math, she said. In science and technology, we're losing. We need to have education up here now. And I agree. We cannot continue to say, well, if we spend more money, I'm pretty sure if we buy new facilities, I think if we go ahead and give teachers raises, and I'm for teachers having raises, but you know what? Own this. Take some responsibility. If we're 50th in the nation, somewhere in the classroom there's a problem. And don't say, well, we didn't have good curriculum. Well, we don't have the right benefits. We can't hire the best teachers. Shut up. We're paying more than multiple other states who rank higher than us because apparently they do something different with their money. Well, some of them have school choice, and that's where we're headed. I got a caller on the line real quick. I'll grab that. Line 1, Robert from Athens. Hey, Robert, how you doing, man?
I'm okay. I'm glad to hear you today. It's a good Monday.
Thank you, sir.
I'll tell you a story, and you tell me what it means for education. About 20 years ago, Athens High School was having trouble in math and science. Went to a PTA meeting. Principal of the school stood up, asked for volunteers in math and science, specifically said, we got so much talent in math and engineering here in the Huntsville, Athens, Decatur area. We want volunteers. Asking for volunteers, right? So I go up and I volunteer. He turns me down and says, no, you have to go back to school for at least 2 years and get your teaching certificate before we can accept you as a volunteer.
What's the point of asking for volunteers if he's not going to take them?
You tell me what it means, because I was flabbergasted. When you ask for volunteers, and particularly if you're not going to pay them anything or you're not going to pay them much, you work with what you got, and I'm not going to go back to school for 2 years. I'm not going to miss out of work for 2 years.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. There's the people who administer our school system are so intent on protecting the teachers' union that they really don't give a damn.
Well, and I would tend to agree. The teachers' union has all the influence, but yet they're not there for the education system. They're there for their rank and file members. Period. That's all they're there for. And so everything you look at is going to be opposing things that rock their status quo, trying to get more money, trying to get higher pay. And I get some of that, but most of that is wound up being a hindrance to the idea of bettering education. Robert, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you as always. All right, listen, folks, you want to call in, you're welcome to it. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We're going to a break right now. When we get back from that, I'll take calls and I'll keep moving. We're in number 2 of the Triple Dipper. Education is a choice. That's where we are right now. We've got to make some choices, and I would say that choice in education is one of the things we need to choose. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Let's face it, 1819 News is here because the other guys aren't doing their jobs.
We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all in North Alabama. Solid, conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. I got a caller on line, too. Let me grab that real quick. Aaron from Florence. Hey, Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about Alabama ranking dead last in the nation.
Yeah.
But I don't really agree with that because I'm a public school educator. I told you, call screener. And I don't see how we can rank 50th with what we spend on education. But when you compare us to other countries, most of those other countries, such as Estonia you listed, that's a single culture country with very few millions. We have 330 million plus people in this country, multiple cultures. Now, where I'm at in a classroom, and I have 3 kids in public school, I love public school system, but I also believe in the freedom of choice. If you want to send your kid to private school, you should have a choice of vouchers to do so. We should be able to afford that in Alabama. But the thing about it is, the point I'm trying to make with this is that if you have multiple culture systems, and like I have several students who are not really good at understanding English or expressing themselves in English, that's going to affect test scores all the way around. And in Alabama, if we've got this excess money, I would love to see a statewide program being introduced for teachers to have the opportunity to learn a second language to help these other cultures, these students that come in here. And we don't have that. We have English as second language teachers that can come in and work in the school system, but there are usually too many students and too few teachers that are doing that. But if you would let these teachers or pay for their schooling to learn that second language, we could also use that in a classroom because we can't communicate not only with them really well, but also their parents who are, immigrants coming into this country will have just a very base language of English that they can understand.
All right.
So let's use some of that excess money for that.
So, Aaron, let me jump in here real quick, Aaron. First of all, thanks for what you do. And by the way, I'm a product of the public school system myself, and so is my wife. But that being said, and I appreciate the fact. By the way, I really appreciate the fact that here you are, a rank and file member of the education community, but you said you don't mind the idea of choice, because I really believe that if we throw that free market principle in there of like competitiveness, that it just makes the public school system have to up their game, and I think that'll happen.
Agreed.
And I appreciate that. Now, let me ask you this though, and you make a great point with the multiculturalism, and I would say multiculturalism can even be state to state. There's different culture in California than there is in Alabama versus New York versus Minnesota, but there are also standards, and we're really not meeting the standards right now. There are states that spend less than us per child that rank higher than us in their ability to manage the standards.
But
what are your thoughts on that?
That's the question. Who are doing these studies? Where are they coming out of? What states are they coming out of? Because California, you hear nightmares now. I have teachers that I go to conferences with. They'll talk about the nightmares they're going through in California, and that these kids, there's no way they could be ranked as high as they are nationwide because they really don't reach their students. They have violence in the classroom. They have kids that will get up and just walk out. Or, the thing about it is these studies are conducted who knows where, and where are the states that are the conservative states? I'm neither a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat. I consider myself a constitutionalist. So I'm right down the middle, whatever is good for America and our citizens education-wise, because as a nation, we got to have a well-informed citizenry. Leave the politics out of the classroom.
I'm good with that. And by the way, where the standards come from, where the rankings come from, it's the NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Education Progress. That's the industry standard, if you will, for education across the nation to provide a survey and results of how the surveys come out. So it's the same across the board. They do a broad brush look at education in every state to the same standard, and they measure them that way. Hey, Aaron, I got somebody else holding on another line, but great call, man. Call in more often. I appreciate it. Line 3, Dwight from Russellville. Hey, Dwight, Phil Williams, how you doing?
Hey, man, I'm here. I'm listening.
Good. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to maybe tell the listeners of the Right Side Ruffians, first of all, Colonel, thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I'll repeat a lesson that we were taught at the John F. Kennedy School for Wayward Boys back in the late 60s. Never give up, never give in, never surrender. When the odds are against you, use what force multipliers you have and go on the offensive.
I like it.
I think that would work well for us. I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts.
I appreciate it, Dwight. And by the way, from what I just gathered from you, thank you for your service too.
Thank you, man.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah, the John F. Kennedy School for Wayward Boys. That's got to be what it's referring to as the JFK Special Warfare Center, where they train Green Berets at Fort Bragg. So. It's actually it's Special Forces, Psychological Operations, Civil Affairs. Because I did some of my training there at the JFK. They call it the SWIC, Special Warfare Center. I do like that. By the way, force multipliers. What a great word! I love it when people call in and they speak my language. So Dwight just used the term force multipliers. What that basically means is, like for instance, Green Berets, one 12-man team can train I believe it was one 12-man team is designed to train up a battalion plus, and so they become a force multiplier. You wind up taking the enablers, the things that are on your list of things you can use in combat, and they become your force multiplier. They make you as if you're bigger than what you are. Dwight, great call. Thanks for your service. I could talk about that all day long. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. You want to call in? I love calls, 833-68-RIGHT. The topic right now is education is a choice. Let's talk about it. That and anything else you want to. 833-68-RIGHT. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Sweet home Alabama. Man, I tell you what, I got to say, I do not mind. And I was telling somebody this morning, we were having a lunch meeting, and I told them, I said, with this show, I hope the message every single day is folks can hear it in this show, that we're willing to say that Jesus is Lord, America is great, Alabama is beautiful, and oh, by the way, life is worth living. So there you have it. Sweet home Alabama. I lived overseas for a period of time, and that was like my theme song. Yeah. That's back when the song was fairly new, too, by the way. It weren't but a few years old during that time. All right, listen, you want to call in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's the phone number. I got to tell you, too, first of all, before we go any further, Just Love Coffee Cafe. Listen, they've been with us for, the majority of the time this show has been broadcasting. And they are so good at what they do. And I love it when they tell me, man, we had another one from Rightside come in. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're thinking, hey, you know what? I need a break. I need to get out of the house or out of the office for a little while. Or for that matter, you want a different breakfast on the way in the morning, or you want something to take a bite to eat tonight, or on a Saturday morning, you and some friends or family gather up and you just want to be able to use the Wi-Fi, read a book, and enjoy a lingering cappuccino or something like that. Listen, they've got all the best coffees and a great menu to go with it. They got what Charlene calls the treat coffees. They got the espressos, the cappuccinos, the lattes, all of it. And then they've got this amazing award-winning different flavors or blends of dry roast. They can grind the beans for you fresh, make a steaming cup of hot black coffee. Man, it's just epic good. So, yeah, Just Love Coffee Cafe. 2 locations in our listening area. One on Hughes Road in Madison out towards City Hall. The other on South Memorial Parkway near Whole Foods. I'm just saying, Just Love Coffee Cafe. Hughes Road in Madison, South Parkway in Huntsville. Check it out and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, I am in number 2 of the Triple Dipper. Apparently, what is that right there? What's that banner? We got a banner up. Oh, Boomer, read the code.
Yeah, just on Fox News, it's just talking about how Biden and the White House is clueless on how to fix teacher shortages.
Here's an idea. It's just like the military. You're wondering how to deal. Hey, hello, Mr. Biden. If you're really worried about it, number one, get rid of the Department of Education, which does nothing for teachers. Restrict the ability of teachers' unions to have influence. And then, oh, by the way, let teachers teach. Stop forcing things down where, culture becomes the classroom. Just how about you go ahead and have some effort there on the part of the national government to get out of the way. How about you do this, Mr. President? How about y'all promote school choice? And then here's the other idea. What about things like we did when I was in the state Senate, where the National Board Certification for teachers is something that they often aspire to. It gives them a leg up. It takes a great deal of work and effort to become an MBCT certified teacher. But so what we did, we plussed up their salary. If you will go and get an MBCT certification, we'll pay you $5,000 more a year in Alabama. And that was something we did to incentivize them to become the best of their particular vocation. Well, there's all kinds of things that the federal government could do, but they spend too much time being the federal government. So there's that. Why are they having trouble recruiting teachers? Well, maybe because you were doing mask mandates in schools, shutting schools down, making them have to teach online when the kids, half of them didn't have internet access, holding them accountable for classrooms where they've got to be, conciliatory towards, here they are teaching the English language, but they've also got to let pronouns be used for whatever they want to use for. Man, Boomer, you just got me off on a whole diatribe, man.
Yep.
Don't
good though.
Don't throw me in that briar patch.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, there's that. We are in education. So here's a story that I pulled off of. This one came off Fox, dated July 21st. So we're right at a little over a month ago, a month and a day. FoxNews.com, piece by Corey DeAngelis, who's been on this show before. Corey's a national spokesperson for the American Federation for Children, school choice advocacy group. Says school choice is winning, but the teachers union empire striking back. So he just went ahead and went all Star Wars on us.
That's exactly what I heard. Yeah. Star Wars.
Yeah, I know you did. Well, they intended it. In fact, they even say in here they use the phrase, "We have entered the empire strikes back phase of the fight for school choice." So that's where we are. But they say, and I love this, The school choice movement is winning like never before, but government school defenders are doing all they can to protect their monopoly. And it's a monopoly. In the wake of extended school shutdowns, second-rate Zoom school, and politicized classrooms, 19 states last year enacted 32 new or expanded education choice policies, making it the year of education choice. I do believe school choice is one of the hottest topics. I was talking to a statewide candidate for office this morning, and I told that person that I believe that school choice is one of the hottest topics out there on both the state and the federal level. Voters cotton to the idea of getting politics out of the classroom and raising the standards and doing this for the kids and not for the system. All right. Goes on to say the broadest new school choice policy enacted in 2021 was West Virginia's Hope Scholarship, which is basically an education savings account. It allows nearly all families, regardless of income, to take their children's state education dollars to whatever education providers they choose, be it public, private, charter, homeschool, whatever. All right. Arizona went a step further. Arizona just signed in what is considered to be the nation's most expansive education choice policy just in the last couple of weeks, I believe. And now every K-12 student in Arizona will be eligible to receive an education savings account. And this basically means that the defenders of the status quo are on their heels, but now they're mounting a counteroffensive to delay and to block and to undo school choice. You got something you about to say? What do you have?
Yeah, I just have a question for you.
Yeah.
And that is for the state of Alabama. Let's just take the state of Alabama right now. If we wanted school choice, how do we go about it? How does that go about? Obviously, we have to vote for the person that wants it. Right. I mean, so everybody get out there and vote for that.
Yeah.
But then what's the process of that?
So, are you looking at my notes?
No, I am not. Is that something?
Because the next story I have
here we go.
is AL Daily News. Alabama school, this is dated June 28th, so just a little over 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Alabama school choice advocates encouraged by SCOTUS ruling on funding. So here's the deal. So my friend Charlotte Meadows, Representative Charlotte Meadows, who's been on this show multiple times, she is a huge school choice advocate. But Representative Charlotte Meadows says in Alabama, advocates said the decision, where were we? She says, I think it shows the right thing to do is to fund children, not school systems. This decision clears the way for us to have a school choice act that doesn't get caught up in a lawsuit. What she's referring to is most recently there was a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that literally said that if you're going to have a program that allows state dollars to be used for private schools, you can't say only some private schools but not Christian schools. All right, so that's what was happening in Maine, and the Supreme Court just basically spanked them and said, no, you can't do it that way. So it brings up in this article, though, from AL Daily News that last year we did have, like the one from Arizona and West Virginia, Boomer, before you moved back to Alabama, we did have a bill last year that would have done those things for Alabama. It was called the Parents' Choice Act. It would have created education savings accounts for parents to keep a certain amount of the money that they would have paid in taxes for the public education to be used wherever they want to include private school. We couldn't get it out of committee.
Got it.
It died in a pile. And what's really galling is it was being carried by State Senator Del Marsh, who for 12 years was almost 12 years, was the pro tem of the state Senate, and he couldn't get his own bill out of committee. What's really happening right now is the AEA has gained influence among the Republican supermajority. And the teachers union, I want to say 40% of Republicans took money from the teachers union for their campaigns.
Wow.
And that used to be a non-thing. Like Republicans did not take teachers union money. And apparently now a bunch of them don't see a problem with it. And then at the same time, we can't get diddly squat done on school choice.
Man.
But we've got to move that needle.
Right.
Got to. Hey, real quick, too, referring back to that story I had from Fox a minute ago, the one that Corey DeAngelis, the Empire Strikes Back one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's what they're doing. In West Virginia, here they are with this great school choice bill. 3,000 students have already signed up for these ESAs, these education savings accounts. 3,000 students statewide are prepared to go elsewhere and do a better thing than what they're doing now, or at least what the parents believe would be a better thing. And yet the West Virginia union-funded opponents of school choice immediately sued the state, and a local trial court judge who has also been endorsed and funded by the teachers union sided with the teachers union and declared ESAs unconstitutional and prohibited the state from implementing the policy. So it's enjoined for now. They're going to have to try the whole case, but I mean, they're going to, in my opinion, the plaintiffs, the anti-school choice folks will lose that lawsuit because unless it's something in their state constitution, which I assume it's a state case. But then they're fighting it in Arizona too. Arizona has passed theirs. Arizona has passed theirs, and then an anti-school choice group that calls themselves Save Our Schools has stepped in and declared that they want to refer the ESA expansion to the ballot so they can fight it at the ballot box and not have to fight it in the legislature because they know they've got a pro-school choice legislature. Here's the bottom line. School choice does not negatively impact schools. Now, the teachers union advocates will tell you, it'll crush our schools. You're taking money away from our schools. If you don't have the students there, why do you have to have the money? Here's the deal. That's the thing. If the money that we spend on education is for the child, then it should go where the child is. If the money that we send to education is strictly for, the system, that's a different story. So your philosophical underpinnings are going to push you in whichever direction. And if you believe for a second that the tax dollars are supposed to be designed solely to support the system, then you are always going to be anti-school choice. But if you believe in the idea that we pay our taxes to educate the child, then you should not care where the child goes as long as it's the best place for them and the parents and legal guardians have had the opportunity to make that decision. Because the money is there for the child. All right, Boomer, great place to take a break, man. Last break of the day. We will take that. We'll come back and wrap her up. I got through two of the Triple Dipper. I'm double dipping off the Triple Dipper today, but that's okay. It's a good show. Great show. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll come right back and wrap it up.
ZLA Solutions is Alabama's premier provider of staffing and business solutions. If you're looking for a job,
All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Hey, listen, folks, I got to tell you before I wrap up the day, that one of the sponsors who's been with us since the beginning of the show is ZLA Solutions. ZLA Solutions is like major league good at getting jobs and people connected. If you're looking for a job yourself, go to their website, zlausa.com. They've got jobs posted, good jobs, with big name employers all over North Alabama. zlausa.com. But here's the thing. If you're an employer looking to fill out the ranks of your workforce, then yeah, zlausa.com, because what they can do is all the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing, blue collar, white collar, no collar, it don't matter. They will square you away. They love to say at ZLA, we don't make it, we make it better. And that's their goal in life. I'm telling you, that's their goal in life, is to make your business better. These are friends of mine. I know these folks personally. I am very familiar with what they do, and they are good at it. So, yeah, ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. Please check them out and tell them you heard about it on the right side. All right, so moving on here. Boomer and I had a conversation off the air there a minute ago, and it reminded me of a couple things. So the free market aspects of school choice. That's what you were asking me right a minute ago, Boomer, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So the free market aspects of school choice, competition. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Boomer.
I'm ready.
If you was to have moved back to Gadsden, and you found out there was only one grocery store, you would probably buy your groceries there, right?
Yeah, I would have to.
You would have to. What if you found out it was because the city council determined they would only allow one grocery store?
Well, then in my head, I would be thinking, this isn't right. I'm probably getting upcharged at the wazoo and probably not getting the best quality.
Yeah, they don't have to restock the shelves with the best stuff. They don't have to make sure you have fresh produce. They don't have to provide, sales and, discounts and coupons. They don't have to do any of that because they're the only game in town, and they got the backing of the government, right? So the government picked the winners and the losers. So in my opinion, the free market aspects of competition are always good for the consumer. It's like I said off the air when we were talking. If someone is building a mousetrap, and then someone comes along and builds the better mousetrap, people will flock to the better mousetrap. It makes the old mousetrap builder either fold up and go away or up their game. And most of the time, competition is what creates the need to up your game and make you do it. So I think the free market aspects of school choice are in large part the competition aspect are in large part the possibilities there are to make the school system better.
Absolutely. I see that teachers want to teach better. They want their kids to learn more. They want their school to do better. I see that in many aspects. As a parent, I personally would love the fact that I get knowing that my tax money's going towards my child's education.
Yeah. And not just towards the system that you're relegated to that school because that's what the government said you had to go.
Right.
Which is the way it's been for way too long. All right. Enough of that. That's a full-on. And by the way, we got time for maybe one call if somebody wants to try and make it. 833-68-RIGHT. I was thinking that we were talking about something. Boomer, I didn't even get through my stack, man.
That's all right. It was a good show. We had lots to talk about.
We had tons to talk about. All right. I will hold that one for tomorrow. Let me set this story aside. We were talking about something earlier, and it reminded me of a story, just like a total aside. Oh, I know. The guy, I think it was Dwight, that called in and talked about the John F. Kennedy Special School for Wayward Boys, which is the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center at Fort Bragg. So really cool thing is right outside of SWCC, the Special Warfare Center, where they train Green Berets and PSYOPs and civil affairs soldiers, and we host people from other branches and other nations. We also they have what's known as the Special Warfare Chapel. Very cool. It's actually the John Wayne Chapel. So John Wayne did the movie The Green Berets back in the day, but I loved the fact that right outside of this chapel on Fort Bragg, there's a marker dedicating it from John Wayne, after his time doing the movie The Green Berets, he also dedicated some of what went into building the SWCC Special Warfare Chapel. Went to services there multiple times. Just a regular chapel, except when you look at all the monuments out front of it. I say monuments, the other markers out in front of it, and then you go inside and realize that the stained glass window is an image of a Green Beret kneeling in front of the cross. That's just very cool. So anyway, fond memory. When I think of the SWCC, I also think of the Special Warfare Chapel. That's very cool. Hey, let me real quick. I got one real quick. This is Jeff from Huntsville. Is that who it is? Yeah. Line 1, Jeff from Huntsville. Real quick, I got a phone call. What you got, man?
Phil, I would like to appeal to your prayer warriors.
Okay.
My son and your son did karate together. He's my only child, and he just got diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer.
Okay. Wow. Well, Jeff, you may be thinking of the other Phil Williams in Huntsville, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean I can't pray for your son. Do you mind if I have your son's first name?
Jeremiah.
Well, listen,
he was
bro.
in Little Dragons with your son.
Well, Jeff, thank you for letting us know, and that's huge. And this show does believe in the power of prayer. So I'll tell you what, as soon as we get off the air, Boomer and I are going to pray for Jeremiah. But I'll just go ahead and ask all of our listeners, if you're hearing, pray for Jeff's son, Jeremiah, because that's a huge deal. Huge deal. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the call, man. Thanks for giving us a heads up. Blessings on you, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, folks. Listen, that's a big deal, and I appreciate Jeff's candor and letting us know about Jeremiah. We will be praying about that. In the meantime, you guys have an amazing night. Just know this, Boomer and I are back here tomorrow too. We'll do it. See if I can get through a whole triple dipper. You guys have an amazing night.